Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Party starter, are you ready to go? I'm the party starter, party starter, party starter, party starter, party starter. party starter. Everybody, let's go. I'm the party starter. Everybody, let's go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, folks, good evening to one and all, and welcome to Sim Race Africa, as always, on a Sunday night, doing what we enjoy, sim racing. And as you all know, those of you who haven't watched it before, I might as well tell you, races from all over South Africa and Namibia that take part in this series, a very well-known series, I must say. And it's always an enjoyable one. A nice brand new circuit we have here tonight, the Fikiso Raceway out in Welkom. One that Frankie and I have had the opportunity to actually go to with the Cape Town guys, Westfront Motor Club, before. So it's literally going back home. A beautiful clear picture we've got from that. As always, Mike side with us tonight, the voices of Westfront Motorsport, Frankie Innes and Francois Butler. Francois, good evening to you.
Very good evening to you, Gary. Yes, we're in for some exciting stuff tonight on Fikiso Freeway. First time round, very exciting track, nice and flat, no hills and undulating parts of the circuit. It's wide open spaces, so I look for some very exciting racing here tonight. We were told earlier on there'll be no rolling start. We've got a static start here this evening, so that makes for exciting pull away. And whoever's quickest on the trigger, Gary, I think is going to be able to get to the front and get the show on the road.
No doubt about it, and it's going to be a very, very tight one. The championship points very, very close to one another. But as always, also joining us here as well, the voice of Westfront Motorsport, Frankie Innes. Frankie, good evening to you as well.
Yeah, good evening everybody, and welcome to round 3 of the National Polocup Championship from Fikiso Freeway, situated between Welkom and Oudendaalsrus. And the circuit was opened in October 1999, previously known as the Goldfields Raceway. Well, it's changed a lot. The old Goldfields Raceway didn't look like Fikiso Freeway. And it's hosted one major national or international event, that was a South African motorcycle MotoGP championship a couple of years ago. As a matter of fact, Gary and myself were in that international media center where you saw all the screens and that, but that was way back in 2004, I think it was, or 2003, yeah, 2004, that we were last at the Fikiso Freeway. But yeah, round 3 of the National Polocup.
Yeah, round 3, so that means race number 5 and race number 6. There you see 17 entries out there, and Melvin Gous, the man from Namibia, also in there as well. I see Newman's also made it on board. The man that's leading the championship in Adrian Nel, he's up there, and 1 minute 52.7. That's almost 6/10 of a second quicker than Leach. And Leach is, well, he's out there just to have fun right now. He doesn't appear on the top 15 on the points log. He hasn't taken part in all the previous rounds. Absmeyer on a 153.5. And he also finds himself a long way down, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably about 13th, 14th on the log is Absmeyer. So he will be pretty chuffed with that one, getting himself onto the second row of the grid. Grobler in there as well on a 153.5. That's a pretty decent one from him. Remember, Peter is presently lying 3rd overall in the championships. Look at the top of the screen, you will see the timing there, 4 minutes 44 till the end of this practice session, Francois.
Yep, a couple of guys out there getting their times in. Like Gary rightly said, Adrian Nel currently the quickest man out on a 152. He set the benchmark. We don't know if racing time will get a little bit quicker than that, but it's definitely set the benchmark for the guys. They're going to have to see if they can better that now. Having a look down through the field there, we've got Christopher Longin on a 153.8. He's about a second slower. He's usually a good contender. Then Sean Loureiro a little bit way down on a 154.5. Now Loureiro, I think if I'm not mistaken, had a little bit of genuine racing this weekend, so he'll be up for it, and will know the lines, and he should be accustomed to the circuit. I'm sure he's been down to the circuit before, so he'll know the lines to take. And I think it makes for some very exciting racing this evening.
Yeah, they've got about 3 minutes and 45 seconds left of the practice session. Then we will officially go to qualifying. That's when all the action starts, qualifying, and then the two 15-minute races plus 1 lap. Normally the service shows the leader has 2 laps to go, but yeah, we'll see how that pans out. It might be the same, it might be 1 lap. It's supposed to be 15 minutes plus 1 lap. And so far, Adrian Nel in practice has done a 1:52.796 with 3 minutes and 15 seconds left. We look at Grobbies there. That's Peter Grobler. That's currently in 4th position in the practice session. James Leach, he's the 2nd quickest man on a 1:53.3. Jason Absmeyer, also 1:53.5. Peter Grobler, Dewald Kotze, sitting there in a 1:53.8. And Christopher Long also in a 1:53.8. So it's only at this point in time in a practice session that Adrian Nel is the man that's quicker than a 1:53.
Well, having a look there now, we're currently board there on with Stewie Mack, and he's in a nice white and blue livery. The 51 car, we're out at a 1:54.1, sitting down in 7th at the moment. But like Frankie rightly said, this is only practice. They come into grips with the circuit, and once we go into actual qualifying, they'll be putting a little bit extra effort in there to see that they can get themselves towards the front row and see what they can achieve. Because having a front row advantage on this circuit, I reckon, does help, because it's a very quick circuit, a very flowing circuit with not too many tight corners on it, so racing should be quite frenetic.
Well, we'd like to do a lap from a different view. We can go through the different aspects. That's now going through it looks like that's the heel of the boot that the drivers are going through now. You'll see them run it up towards the toe of the boot. Yep, that is the heel of the boot. They'll go into the hairpin. That is the toe of the boot. And for those of you that know Pekisa Freeway, it does look like a boot. They're going through Castle Corner now. That a couple of years ago, when Gary and myself was there in 2004, it was called Coca-Cola Corner. There was a huge Coke can that stood there, but that's many, many years ago. Now they go through this straight into a slight little left-hander. Then they'll work their way through Unchini 1. Under that bridge they go there, that's Unchini 1. And then they work their way now into Unchini 2. And directly out of Unchini 2, they go onto that long back straight, which is a super long back straight. Then they go into a right-hander, which is one of the quickest right-handers in the country other than East London Grand Prix circuit. It just keeps on going. Then they go into Heelskop. You see it's flat out now. Then they go into Heelskop. That closes up heavily on you. You see what happens if you get Heelskop wrong. It closes up heavily on you, Heelskop. Then it's a bit of a squirt, Francois, which takes you into the left-hander, back onto the main straight again.
Yep, and that's where they cross the start-finish line once again to start a new lap, and also passes the pit lane, as you can rightly see. So that pretty much gives you the layout of the circuit. And like I said to you, there's a lot of high-speed points on this, and like Frankie rightly said, a couple of these high-speed points can catch you out if you take too much of a wide line. It'll spit you to the outside of the circuit. Fortunately, lots of runoff there. But you don't want to get spat out to the outside, because that's going to incur a little bit of penalty on your time, and you're going to find yourself going backwards at an alarming rate.
You see Stewie Mack making his way out of Heelskop. The pit lane will be on his left-hand side, and he'll turn it left onto the main straight. Now that is Stewie Mack is on a 1:54.123. It seems as if the qualifying time, the practice time is over, and shortly they will be starting with the official qualifying.
Right, so we'll have to have a look-see now when the guys go out for qualifying, how they're going to fare. All 18 contenders, from Adrian Nel all the way down to Niemand, will hopefully have a good time out there. And it's going to be daunting enough to post some good times. A lot of the drivers out there now are pretty well established on the Sim Racing Africa platform. So a lot to be expected of them, the likes of Adrian Nel, Peter Grobler, Christopher Long, Sean Larerio, Stewie Mack, Melvin Goos. They all the chaps to keep an eye on. And I see lower down in 15th place is Lyle Ramsey. Also a man that's familiar with the Polocup GTI type driving. And he'll be one to do well if he can tonight, and we'll have to have a look-see. Gary, a few words.
Yeah, Adrian Nell leading them out on 184, just 2 points behind him. That is John Henry Vaughan, and I don't see him on the startup grid. So that takes a bit of pressure off Adrian Nell, who was the fastest qualifier by 16ths of a second. So, so far so good for him. Peter Grobler on 177, and Grobby's, as Frankie said, in the top 5, or 153.5, going quite fine for him. Valdo Swiggers, he's also in there as well, in the top 5 overall in the championship, but Valdo finds himself down in 16th, although having said that, it's only 1 second further back, so that being the practice session, not a total train smash. You look at the likes of Johanna van der Westhuizen that only just came on right towards the end of the session. He's also there around about the 1 minute 55. So it's going to be a quick qualifying session, and then we will go into heat number 1. Standing starts it will be. Rounding out the top 10, Christopher Long, Clinton Bezuidenhout, Mike McGeer, Gerard Niemand, Dewald Kotze, and Warren Sheehan. Keep in mind that Stuart Max right in there as well. And one of the guys that's not out there tonight, Gavin Fleming, he is also inside the top 15. So if he has a decent race on the B event later in the week, he will then probably be able to move into the bottom of Class A. So a bit of pressure for the guys at the back end of Class A, and a lot of excitement for the guys at the front end of Class B. 2 minutes between the practice session and the qualifier, the races being 2 races of 15 minutes plus 1 lap. That's the way that it's going to be. A big thanks to our sponsors, as always, JP Hydraulics, always being of assistance to us, and then Volvo Namibia as well. A big thanks to those people for helping to make this one happen.
Right, so we're just waiting for the qualifying session to commence. Once we have the qualifying session on the go, we will be pretty happy to get up and running. Thanks to JP Hydraulics and Volvo Cars Africa in Namibia for taking the time out to sponsor tonight's event, and we look forward to some exciting racing, because all the past events has been pretty exciting to say the least. It's been very tight. Like Gary rightly said, we're missing a couple of names here tonight. They're not on board, but I'm sure that the field of 18 cars, which is more than enough to stage a race, will make for very exciting action here tonight. Let's have a look at qualifying session and see how they fare.
Right, here we go. 25 minutes of qualifying has just begun.
Right, so off they go. And we'll have to see what kind of times get posted out there at the moment at Lyle Ramsey. We're keeping an eye on him in that blue, red and white polo as he works his way down into the right hander now. You can see the circuit is that of that nature that if you go too deep into a corner, it has a tendency of forcing you out, because they're pretty wide corners. So you've got to take the right line, apex it at the correct moment in order to get good drive out of the corners.
Well, Pekisa Freeway was originally designed to be a full motorcycle racetrack. It is car friendly, but it was originally designed to be a racetrack for motorcycles. And we see Warren Sheehan making his way around the circuit as we've just got under a few minutes left for qualifying.
Alright, the guys deciding that there was a glitch on the server, therefore the voting, as you saw at the top of the screen, determining that the majority saying, guys, let's rather restart it, because there was one or two guys that were not on the server. So you'll see some of the guys probably backing to get out of the pits, because look at that. Everybody now climbs out of the pits and onto the track they go. Now you'll find some of the older hands, the Johanna van der Westhuizens of this world, will try and get themselves an open run, knowing that they're going to get slowed up in the traffic. Some of the guys will fancy sitting in the traffic and trying to pick up a slipstream, given the length of the long straights. But keep in mind, Adrian now leading out from John Henry Vaughan, Peter Grobler, Valdo Swiggers, Christopher Long, Clinton Bezuidenhout. That's another one. Oh, there Clinton is in, Francois. 18th, he was the last man to come out. That could be why they actually rebooted, because Clinton Bezuidenhout did not show, to my mind, earlier on, and Clinton Bezuidenhout now on the screen as well.
Yeah, welcome appointment there for Clinton Bezuidenhout. We I was going to say missed him quite sorely because he's been around for just about every single race and he is a good factor there. So we'll have to have a look. See, nice to see Jan van der Westhuizen on circuit, a local man. He knows his way around in a VW Polo. So I think that'll make for exciting outing tonight. Warren Sheehan, well, also absolutely no slouch whatsoever there. Warwick Stewart's in there too. Stewie Max in there. And Peter Grobler and Melvin Ghost. The two of them have been great exponents. So we'll keep an eye on them tonight and see how they fare. Let's look at about 3 minutes of quali left. That's probably, what, about 2 laps. So the guys have to get in post times pretty quickly.
Well, as you see now, as they go across the line, that is the lap times coming out of the pits with 2 minutes 53 to go. That means you're literally going to have a flyer. I think that they've actually made the qualifying period a little bit shorter. So coming out of the pits on a 1:59, that ain't going to do it. You're going to have to get out for the second lap and hold on to that one. So initially Absmeyer doing a pretty decent job, but remember guys like Bezuidenhout, they came out from the back end of the pits, would have driven a long way down the pit lane, and you are limited in your pit speed that you can go as well. Hence the 1:59 of the likes of Absmeyer and Bezuidenhout on a 2:23. So the real deal, Francois, will actually come up now once they go across the line for the next time.
Now this is almost like a hotshot lap, but I'm sure they're going to make sure about what they're doing here now. So like you rightly said, they will cross the line and hopefully post a good time. Possibly over the line before the time is up, which means they'll still have another flag lap, Gary, if they manage to get over the line before the clock runs out. There's still 1 minute 50 seconds out there, and that does give them time to cross the line. So possibly a second lap to better your first lap.
Yeah, probably you're going to end up with 2 flyers. That's the whole idea, is to put the pressure down and make sure that everybody feels it. Jan van der Westhuizen, Gerard Niemand, Warwick Stewart and us. John Henry Vaughan has joined in there as well. So John Henry Vaughan must be on track. Let's see if we can maybe pick him up. Well, John Henry Vaughan is on track and off track. So the 20th car has now made it onto the surface as well. John Henry Vaughan, as we said, lying second overall in the championship. Done a very, very good job of this one so far, there's no doubt about it. Scoring 90 points in the first round, joint with Adrian Nel, and then scoring 92 as opposed to Adrian on his 94 in round number 2. This being the third event, in other words, heats 5 and 6.
John Henry Vaughan's been a good exponent. He's usually finds himself up in the top 5. As a hard racer, he's pretty quick on the sim structure. So he knows his way around. But I think tonight's going to be a different kettle of fish. I see Adrian Nel back up into the 153s there with Jason Absmeyer on a 154. Warren Sheehan's up there together with Christopher Long. And Christopher Long, the man from the drifting side, is taken to like a duck to water to saloon car racing. So we have a look there now as we're on board with Jason Absmeyer.
Right, Adrian Nel, 153.563. Jason Absmeyer, 154.1. And all the way down to Leach, that's done a 154.8. Stewie Mack done a 155 dead, and all the way down to Mike McGear on 155s. Then Clinton Bezuidenhout, who, by the way, yesterday I saw at Zone 7. He was there with Carl Wilshire. So I'd love to know what sim seat Clint is sitting in. Probably in the Wilshire seat, but he is definitely down in Cape Town. Jan van der Westhuizen doing a 158.9. So Jan who's slightly off pace there, followed there by Gerard Niemand. So we've gone into the overtime session, which means that the checkered flags will be coming out. Yeah, we see the checkered flags coming out. Absmeyer has finished his session. He's going to do a 154.1. He can do no better than that, which means provisional pole, and probably the man on pole will be Adrian Nel, the man who's sitting on board. But now, yes, he is the man that sticks that polo hatch in P1 with a 153.5. Now I'm trying to see where John Henry Vaughan has qualified, and oh my goodness, he is not a happy camper. He hasn't put up a time yet. So John Henry Vaughan, the man that's lying I think 3rd or 4th, well, he's definitely in the top 5 in the championship, He is in a spot of bother, currently in 20th position with no qualifying time.
Well, keep an eye on John Henry Vaughan. I don't think he's going to sit back and watch the flowers grow. He'll start off and he'll try and cut his way through the field. We'll have to see how that all works out. So it won't be too long, and we'll be out along with heat number 1.
Well, John Henry Vaughan didn't post the times. He'll start 20th and last. He does have 15 minutes, so what he must do is just systematically work his way through the field and not push any panic buttons. There's no reason to hit any panic buttons at all. The young man is good enough to work his way from the back of the pack. If anybody watched Moto 3 today, you would have seen that Darren Binder started in about 25th position and was second at one stage and ended 4th overall. So there certainly is no reason for John Henry Vaughan to hit those panic buttons. He must just take it easily from there and try and work his way through. However, if you look at the names on that board on the right hand side of our screen, it's not going to be a very easy task, that's for sure.
Not if I look at the names like Adrian Nel, Jason Absmeyer, Warren Shen, Christopher Long, Melvin Ghost. Those first 5 are pretty well-equipped drivers. They've been doing sim racing for quite a while now, and I'm sure that they know their way around a circuit. Although Fakisa is an unknown entity now to most of the drivers in terms of sim racing, but seeing the skills that they have portrayed over the last few races, I'm sure that they'll do them as well as they can.
Oh, this is going to be pretty interesting stuff. Remember, it's going to be a standing start, and I think we'll link up there with Christopher Long. I think that's going to be pretty much where the action's going to be, around about that 4th position. So front row of the grid, Nelvin Absmeyer, Sheehan and Long on the 2nd row of the grid, the Ghost and Leach on the 3rd row of the grid, the 2nd of the Leeches and Insulin on the 4th row of the grid, Peter Grobler and Stewie Mack rounding out the top 10. Waldo Swickers and Herrero is, wow, he's a long way down. He's down in 12th. Peter Bezuidenhout in 13th. Lyle Ramsey, one of the top boys alongside Kotze, with Warwick Stewart and Mike McGeer down in 17th. Johanna van der Westhuizen and Gerard Niemand and John Henry Vaughan is going to be coming off the back of the pack. That's going to be pretty interesting stuff. The lights go on, and when the lights go off the line, it will be, and we're going to be zoning in on that black motor car, the Mike's Place Polo, and that is in the hands of Christopher Long. He's there in 4th position as they came off the line. He gets himself right on the outside. The JP Hydraulics car of Ghost making light contact, and total chaos there, Francois, as they come out of turn number 1.
Everyone's very eager, and there's bumping and barging there towards the outside of that left-hander. Now they work their way down through the kink there, and keep an eye there now. It looks like it could be Nell that's leading. Again, a couple of cars turning sideways and becoming very unsettled. Like I said, they're not too familiar with the circuit, and they might be going in a little bit hot, a little bit overzealous as they go in there now into the next right-hander. And we're on board with Leach. And have a look-see now. 3 abreast into a corner. It's not going to work, Frankie.
Yeah, René Leach is the man that we're sitting on board with, making their way out of the toe of the boot now, working their way towards Coke Corner as they turn it into that left-hander. Sorry, I should say Castle Corner. It was called Coke Corner a couple of years ago. Now, they'll run it as hard as they can down that straight towards Uncini 1. There you see them going to Uncini 1, working their way now towards Uncini 2, and then out of Uncini 2 down that long back straight. We're sitting there with Melvin Ghost. He sits there in P4. You see Christopher Long right there on his inside. Melvin looking around the outside of Ghost. This is very quick into turn number 9. Through that right-hander they go now. It's still flat box into Geelskop. They're still going to go as quick as they can. Remember, now into Geelskop. It closes up on you, does Geelskop. You've got to have the right line through Geelskop. Now into a bit of a squirt before the left-hander onto the home straight.
Well, having a look at there, Christopher Long, he's got the advantage of the left hand. He's up on the inside, and Ghost a little bit on the outside now. Possibly it's Sheehan up on the inside there now. So it's a drag down to the left-hander, and we sit there on board now with Melvin Ghost, and he watches the 2 squabble up ahead of him now, and he's probably got the best seat in the house. Still having a look here at Christopher Long. He wants to maintain the outside post, but it looks like he's not going to have too much advantage now as they go down into that right-hander.
Yeah, I'm on board there with third place man, Melvin Gous. He is at 2/10 of a second behind Chris Long, who himself is 3/10 of a second behind Grobbies. There's not much between the three of them as they work their way out of the heel of the boot towards the toe of the boot now. Into that right-handed hairpin they go. Melvin Gous, oh, they're running very wide. That could be Grobler. Yes, Grobbies is losing ground. That was Grobler that ran very wide, and he's fighting back there with Melvin Gous. He's on the inside of Melvin Gous, but Gous holds the line coming out of the Castle Corner.
Right, so down they go now out of Castle Corner now. Melvin Gous be happy that he's ahead of Peter Grobler. Christopher Long, well, he bided his time, and he's doing not too badly. He sits now in P3, about 3.5 seconds behind Jason Absmeyer and Adrian Nell. So now they're going to Inchini 2, taking that right-hander now. And we move on now down to Stewie Mack. Keep an eye there now in about 10th place or so, on board with Stewie Mack. And he's got a gaggle of cars up behind him. That's Leach and Sheehan and Ensland all up in front of him now as they take that right-hand sweep.
Yep, that right-handed sweep. We're on board with Stuart Mack sitting there in P10, and he's just had a go there at Leach. And Renier Leach is losing a lot of ground. He was off the track at one point in time, was Renier Leach. As we are now once again with Stewie Mack. Mike McGeer sitting in there. He's 3/10 of a second behind Stewie Mack. Followed there by Janu van der Westhuizen. Van der Westhuizen in P11, 1/10 behind Mack. As a matter of fact, he's sitting side by side. There we see Mack on the outside with the Van der Westhuizen diving into turn number 1. And Van der Westhuizen is having a go there at Stewie Mack as they make their way through the twiddly bits towards the heel of the boot.
Towards the going through the kink now, the left and right hander. We're on board with Jana van der Westhuizen. He's watching Mack and McGreer up in front of him now. He comes in, he takes an attacking line. He goes almost between the two of them, tries to thread his way through. But it looks like McGeer's got a bit of the upper hand there now. Jana van der Westhuizen trying everything as he tries to work his way through there now. Now into the toe of the boot. He looks up on the inside. Can he squeeze it through? He manages to do it. And gets a good drive coming out of the corner now. But rubbing is racing tonight, definitely, Frankie.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about. This National Polocup Series. We're sitting in car with Janu van der Westhuizen. Van der Westhuizen out of Castle Corner now. They race through that kink towards Unchini 1. That bridge is Unchini 1, turning it right into Unchini 1. The next turn will be Unchini 2 as we're now in car with Stuart Mack. He sees Janu van der Westhuizen ahead of him. Through Unchini 2 they go, down that long back straight. That must be pretty close to about a K, that long back straight, into very quick turn number 9.
Well, you see the racing lines being taken there by Steve Mack. He's trying to make sure that he uses the best part of the circuit and gets the best driver there. They all go right out maximum there now onto the long curve that is the right-hander now. Tight, and it's a great battle up there behind him. A whole gaggle of cars trying to work their way through now as we go on board with Peter Grobler, who's sitting up behind Melvin Gous, and they're up 2 in his left there is Christopher Long. And they come up into that tight little left-hander there to the pit complex.
Well, Grobbies is having a look there at Melvin Gous, and they're both looking there at Christopher Long. Clinton Besaidnout is the man that you see, the last man in that picture. You see the 3 cars go through. That 4th car now that you pick up there, that is Clinton Besaidnout, and it's still one-on-one here between Long and Gous. They are virtually side by side, and here comes Grobbies. Grobbies wants to have a look up on the inside as they work their way through the toe of the boot, with the heel of the boot up the straight now towards the hairpin. That's the toe of the boot, and there's nothing between Long, Gous and Grobler. If anything, Besaidnout is getting closer and closer to them.
Well, Christopher Long clawing onto P3, and he's trying to fend off all the attentions there from Melvin Gous and Peter Grobler. Keep an eye there now as Melvin Gous comes out. He tries to get a bit of a draft up behind Christopher Long. It's a long straight with a little bit of a kink in it there now. And see if they can drive up behind Christopher Long. Long fending them off now as he takes the right-hander now. And have a look there at Peter Grobler. He's also trying to do the draft stunt up behind Melvin Gous. Clinton Besaidnout trying to creep a little bit closer now behind him, Warren Sheehan.
Right, out of Uncini 2 they go now. We're on board with Ensland. Ensland is having a look there at Warren Sheehan in front of him. Sheehan and Ensland, there's not much between the two of them. Ensland is only 2/10 of a second there behind Sheehan. That's the dice for P7 and 8, and Gous is going backwards. Gous has dropped all the way down to P8. We saw a car go off. That was Gous. His name came up on a different color. That means he's the man that dropped all the way down into 8th position. We still look there at Ensland, looking at Sheehan, and behind Ensland it is Gous that's making a comeback.
Oh, Gous a little bit overzealous into that previous corner and forced him wide. Nice comeback, and he's in 8th position. Right, we go up now on board here with Peter Grobler. Grobler still behind Christopher Long. Long's been using a lot of those tyres. We hope they're going to last for this total heat. And he's not going to lose a bit of tyre wear there. Right, so now through the twiddly bits now as they go down towards the heel of the boot onto that right-hander. And it looks like Grobler wants to get a bit closer to Christopher Long.
Yeah, well, Long came out that heel of the boot. Very, very hard to use the rumble strip and a touch more as they squirted up that straight towards the toe of the boot. And Grobbies is calling all over the back of Long. Peter Grobler in P4 calling all over the back of Chris Long. That sits there in that 3rd position. They go to the right as they turn it into the left hand. That is Castle Corner. Out of Castle Corner, these two Polocup drivers race now towards the kink and into the right hander. That is Uncini 1. Through the kink they go now and turn it right into Uncini 1. Through Uncini 1 they go now straight into Uncini 2, and then from Uncini 2 it is that very long back straight.
Yep, and here they're going to get the foot flat on the floorboard. It is a drafting opportunity, but Grobler decides to go and sit alongside Long. And we're on board with Peter Grobler. He might have the advantage going into the right about. Oh, look at Long come diving around his outside. Brilliant stuff there now. Long carrying a lot of speed into that corner and managing to keep it together now. And they come back into that tight right-hander now. But have a look there at Grobler. Well, he tried as he may, but I think Christopher Long had the upper hand there. But there seems to be a bit of a squabble there up behind them.
Right-hander, that heel skop, that second last corner before you turn into the left-hander that takes you onto the home straight. It's a very difficult corner. Gous is going backwards again. We're on board there with Ensland, and he sees Warren Sheehan ahead of him. He's 1.2 seconds ahead. Behind Sheehan is Ensland as they go into the left-hander. It's just flowing left-right sweeps that they're running through now, Francois, that takes them towards the heel of the boot.
Yep, they're on the way to the heel of the boot. We sit with Warren Sheehan on board behind Clinton Besaidnout. Besaidnout hard on the brakes there, nice and slow into the corner, gets a quick exit out of the corner now as they make their way up to the toe of the boot now. Keep an eye there on the lines of Clinton Besaidnout. He'll go wide, he'll leave the brakes late, and he'll dive up towards the inside, closing the door there on Warren Sheehan.
Right, we are now on board with, or we're looking at the man in P6, Warren Sheehan. That's 4/10 of a second behind 5th place man Clinton Besaidnout. Into Castle Corner they go now. These 4 Polocup drivers. Warren Sheehan, he's got missile lock there on Besaidnout as they work their way through Uncini 1.
Right, so we're back on board now with Peter Grobler still having it out there with Christopher Long. The two of these drivers have not let each other go whatsoever. Christopher Long at the moment has a little bit of the upper hand. He's sitting in P3. Peter Grobler is now trying everything, and you can see him drafting now into the corner they go, and up on the inside, getting a tad close there is Peter Grobler to back of Christopher Long. And you don't want to be, as they would say, police tapping someone on the back there, because you're going to go farming back. Grobler looks up on the inside and tends to get it. Gets a bit of a shutout, runs a bit wide now. Christopher Long comes back up on his inside, and they're side by side, and they're having a titanic struggle.
Yeah, there's a gaggle of cars coming up behind the two of them. And Grobbies and Long. Grobbies is on the dirt as they go down the home straight. There's your grid as they race down into turn number 1. Grobler sits there in P4, 5/10 of a second behind Long, who's 6.3 seconds behind Jason Absmeyer. Or should I say Absmeyer, that's in 2nd position. We've forgotten about Adranel and Jason Absmeyer in P1 and 2. These two guys have up-ducked and disappeared.
I think Adranel and Jason Absmeyer are doing a good job here tonight, getting clear of the field and trying to stay ahead there. They're on their own mission, but behind them are Christopher Long and Peter Grobler are having a titanic struggle. They can see the leaders down the road, but they've got a lot of ground to cover now as they come into that tight right-hander.
Into the toe of the boot they go now. We're sitting there with Long and Grobler. We jump on board the in-car cam there of Pieter Grobler. Jump on board the in-car cam there of Pieter Grobler. Have a look at the brake lights there of the Mike's Place Polo of Chris Long. Out of Castle Corner, they work their way now into the kink that takes them to Incini 1. Can Grobbies make a move there on Long somewhere going into Incini? I don't think he'll make a move through Incini 1 and 2. He'll try to make a move into turns 9 and 10. Turn 10 tends to start to close up on you, and it's when you get to Geelskop, that's where the problem is. But now if he wants to make a move on him somewhere, he must not get very, very close to him. He's 4/10 of a second behind him into the super quick turn number 9. It is flat out through turn number 9, and now you need to start easing off as you make your way towards Geelskop.
Oh, some great stuff there now. Going down to have a look at Janne van der Westhuizen, who finds himself in 9th position. One would expect him to be a little way up there now. He's a seasoned veteran of the polos, so he knows how polo reacts. Sometimes on sim racing, a little bit difficult now with things like the limited slip diff ratios and so forth that are off. And up behind him there is Rick Leach and Stewie Mack. They'll be wanting to push, but Janne van der Westhuizen having a look there at Sean Lerero ahead of him.
Yeah, Renier Leach and Stewie Mack is right there. As a matter of fact, so was Waldo Swiger. So Van der Westhuizen has got company. He's got Renier Leach 7/10 of a second behind him. Janne van der Westhuizen looking at Sean Lerero, who is looking at Warren Sheehan. There's not much between these guys as they work their way through these flowing right-left sweeps into the heel of the boot. You see those Polo Cup cars turn into the right hand of the heel of the boot with the Janne van der Westhuizen. My word, is locking up. Renier Leach says he wants to have a go as well. Van der Westhuizen is now all over the back of Lereo as they head down into the toe of the boot.
Right into the toe they go, and getting nice and close there to Lerero. But if you had a look there in the rearview mirror of Janne van der Westhuizen, Renier Leach was right there with him, and they work their way now through Castle Corner. And have a look up on the inside. Is Renier Leach there on the inside of Van der Westhuizen, and he's not going to be too happy about that and want to get away from him.
Ja, it is Renier Leach and Janne van der Westhuizen. Sean Lerero is busy disappearing, although he's only 6/10 of a second ahead of Van der Westhuizen. Van der Westhuizen cannot be worried too much about Sean Lerero at this point in time. He needs to keep Renier Leach behind him, knowing that the Waldo Swiegers is also there, but he's 2.4 seconds behind Leach, so Waldo not much of a threat at this point in time.
On board with Renier Leach up behind Janne van der Westhuizen. Now let's have a look, see what kind of lines he takes there to attack him. I'm going to tell you now. Oh, and Janne going a little bit wide there now, and he's opened the door. He's gone farming. Very uncharacteristically for Janne van der Westhuizen to lose the line and go farming, and that has put paid to his chances of getting a top 10 position.
Ja, Van der Westhuizen has chucked that one into the kitty litter as we on board with Clinton Besaidnout. And he is 2/10 of a second behind Melville Gous. That's Gous and Besaidnout with 1 minute and 15 seconds left on the clock. This one is almost done. It'll be 1 minute 15 plus about a lap or so to do as they work their way through the left-right flowing bits into the toe of the boot.
Right into the toe of the boot they go, and Clinton Besaidnout chasing hard there on the back of Melvin Gous. Warren Sheehan's in close attendance there. He'll also want to make something special take place. See how they work out there now on board with Sean Lerero. He looks at the back of Warren Sheehan, and now they go into the toe of the boot. It's that tight right-hander working their way around there now. Sean Lerero trying very hard there now, but you can see that gaggle up front, and Warren Sheehan, Clinton Besaidnout and Melvin Gous all down the road there now. They go hard into this left-hander, and we're going to go have a look at the leader, and here we go, Adrian Nel having a fair weather day, uncontested at the moment, 6 seconds ahead of Jason Absmeyer.
Oh, by the way, we do have a race leader. His name is Adrian Nel. He had this one. Look at the gap that Nel has got on Jason Absmeyer. 6.3 seconds ahead there of Absmeyer. It's been a lonely race up front there for race leader Adrian Nel as he works his way around. It looks like we're going to have at least one more lap to go. No, the leader will have 2 laps to go as they cross the line. They normally say +1, but the server gives them 2 laps. Although it does say now that they are on their final lap.
No, they're on their final lap now. Adrian Nel, like we said, a very comfortable, almost 8 seconds now ahead of the second place man, Jason Absmeyer, who we have on screen. Then we go down to Christopher Long, who's still having it out there with Peter Grobler. So they will take it right down to the wire, so to speak. Melvin Ghost now finds himself in P5. He's looking quite good out there. And then Clinton Besaidnout, who's worked his way up into 6. But he's got a lot of work to do with Sean Lorerio and Leach in close proximity.
Yeah, look at Renier Leach. He is only a tenth of a second behind Sean Lorerio as they work their way through that flowing bit towards the heel of the boot. They go now. The leader must be pretty close to the checkered flag. That's Adranel. He is way down the road as Leach is all over the back of Loreiro as they make their way around the circuit. But I'm sure the checkered flag is beckoning for the man in P1, Adranel. Yes, he's making his way through Uncini 1. Adranel is almost there. He goes through Uncini 2 now and then turns it onto the long back straight. If he looks over his right-hand shoulder, you'll see the main straight on his right-hand side, but still, there's a hell of a dice between Long and Grobler for that final podium position.
Oh, Grobler up on the inside now. He's got the upper hand now. He goes up into the right-hand corner now. Long chooses to stay on the outside, but it looks like Grobler has left the Bristol last now as he drags now with Christopher Long down into that second right-hander. In he goes. And Adrian Nel will probably be very close to the flag right now. We'll go on board with Adrian Nel. And he's going to get the checkered flag up over the start-finish line. He goes, and he'll be very proud of himself for a great outing there.
Yeah, he wins this one. Absmeyer should be the man that comes home in that second position. And we're looking at this fight between Long and Grobler. They are side by side towards a checkered flag. Christopher Long will come home in P3, just ahead of Peter Grobler that finishes in 4th position.
Having a look at the rest of the field, Clinton Besaidnout there with a respectable P5, followed there by Sean Lorerio. And then Leach Sheehan will come through Van der Westhuizen in a possible top 10. Yep, Van der Westhuizen takes it from Waldo Swiggers and Dewald Kotze.
Dewald Kotze crosses the line. James Leach and Stevie Mack also finishes their race. And so does Mike McGeer. Ensland crosses the line. And oh my word, John Henry Vaughan did not finish.
Well, I tell you what, that made for some pretty interesting stuff. Right, remember we're going to have a 2-minute gap between heat number 1, heat number 2. Once again, we'll go to 15 minutes plus a lap. Are they going to invert? I didn't ask the question before the time. If they do, I would guess it would be the top 8 that would invert. If that's the case, then Loreiro and Leach will be on the front row of the grid. Besaidnout and Ghost, that's done very well, will be on the second row. Grobler and Long will be on the third row. And then undoubtedly the fastest man in qualifying and taking 10 seconds out of Absmeyer that ran away by 6 seconds from Christopher Long, who was, let's be honest, he was held up by Grobler because, I mean, him and Grobler were chopping and changing positions all the time. So definitely that slowed the two of them down. Should they invert the top 10, that would bring ex-Polocup racer Johan van der Westhuizen and Warren Sheehan onto the front row of the grid. I do tend to think it's going to be top 8. Waldo Swiggers just outside of the top 10 from Kotze, Leach, Stewie Mack. Lyle Ramsey, surprisingly, in the beginning of the series was doing very well, and we see Lyle now, Francois, right down there in 15th position.
Yeah, Lyle Ramsey, one has to ask, I mean, he's very good on a normal circuit. He's now on the sim racing. One would expect him to be up a little bit higher, maybe not too accustomed to the sim or the feel and touch thereof, although there is a G-force on the steering wheel and the pedals alike. So one has to ask the question, why is he so low down? But nonetheless, I think hats off there to Adrian Nel. Man, what a race. And that buffer in first place saying to Jason Absmeyer, buddy, I'm setting the benchmark. If you want to play this game, you need to come to the party.
Well, I tell you what, he's leading the series. He was the top point scorer, joint top point scorer with John Henry Vaughan for round number 1. For the second race meeting, He once again came up in the top two. He in fact put 47 points on the board for the second event and was only beaten out there, in fact, by John Henry Vaughan in that one. So as we go now for the setup for us to go back out on circuit, remember we said the computer was set for 2 minutes, and that's going to be very interesting to say. Will it be Leach and Lerero? Remember, Lerero is an ex-series champion. So if he pulls away in the front, you might have a situation like last time that we said, if John Henry Vaughan gets the break, he's gone. That's exactly what he did. Sean Lerero might do exactly the same now.
Yeah, like I say, he's a seasoned campaigner. So if Sean Lerero is in fact inverted and he finds himself up on the front row, like Gary rightly said, he's going to make the most of it and try and get away. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a different picture this time round if they do invert, because you're going to have the cat amongst the pigeons. You're going to have a guy like Adrianel down on the fourth row. He's going to want to cut through there. And then right bang smack in the middle, you've got the two very good close contenders. That's Pieter Grobler and Melvin Goos. They're also going to want to fight their way through. So we're going to have to wait and see how this one's going to pan out. Not much longer and we'll be back racing.
Would have expected Engstland to have a pretty decent meeting. Unfortunately, he only came up in 18th. He must have had a pretty much big off and come back onto the circuit again, or a pit stop at some point to try and fix some damage, because coming up in 18th, guys Mike McGeer and Warwick Stewart, that's quite surprising. Well, here we go. It's going to be 57 seconds before they go to the start of the race. Yep, exactly as we expected. It's going to be Lerero and Leach on the front row of the grid. Bezuidenhout and Melvin Goos in the JP Hydraulics car. Big thanks to JP Hydraulics for coming on board. Alan Martin, big thanks to him. And that's our Namibian flavor coming through. And then obviously Volvo Cars Namibia as well. From our side, a big thanks to Jano van der Westhuizen and Quick Fix. I see Jano is up there in 10th position. Also to Alpine Auto. And then a big thanks also to Maps Racing, John Henry Vaughan, who's going to be starting pretty much off the back of the pack. Well, I tell you what, John Henry Vaughan was actually, there he is on the second last row of the grid. Well, let's link up with Goos, because I think it's around about there the action's going to be. No, let's go one further back. Let's go to Christopher Long, and as they're going to be about to go off the line, Francois Butler, take them off the line.
Right off the line they go. It's a great wheel spin, lots puffs of smoke, and off they go. Christopher Long has the likes there of Adrianel alongside him now as they make their way down to that first left-hander. Cars all bumping and barging there, trying to keep it all together. Someone's come off in a very bad way, going backwards there. Looks like it could be Warwick Stewart. Had a terrible start there. They are 4-5 abreast, trying to work their way through and keeping out in the front. It looks like Lerero is trying to grab the front there now, but he could have the likes of Clinton Bezuidenhout giving him absolute uphill.
Oh, well, Clinton Bezuidenhout is the man that sits out there in P1. We're looking at Van der Westhuizen from Christopher Long's car as they turn into the right-hander. That is the heel of the boot they're going through now. Through the heel of the boot, we'll just make sure it could be... No, it's actually the toe of the boot that they're going through. These gaggle of polos are right there, one with each other. Swinging it left there into Castle Corner. Through Castle they go now. Drivers bouncing all over the countryside. That's Melvin Goos. That's losing a lot of ground as they work their way through the kink and into Uncini 1. Through Uncini 1 they go now. Look at this gaggle of polos. Jano van der Westhuizen. And all this chaos ahead of him. It looks like Leach has got himself in a knot. There's a lot of them that's getting themselves in a knot there between Uncini 1 and Uncini 2.
Oh, there's another pile up there behind them. It looks like John Henry Vaughan and company have gone farming there, so they've done themselves a terrible injustice. Still at the moment in the front is Sean Lerero, who's about 0.3 there ahead. And we're on board with Pieter Grobler, having a look at the back end there of Waldo Swiggers.
Well, what an opening lap we've had here in race number 2. The cars are all over the playing field. Lerero has lost that lead. As a matter of fact, Bezuidenhout has lost that lead. Sean Lerero is the man that sits there in P1. Bezuidenhout second. Adrianel from P8 has gone to P3 at the end of lap number 1. With all this chaos and carnage out there, Adrianel, the man that won the opening race, now sits there in that third position, 0.3 of a second behind Clinton Bezuidenhout.
Well, Clinton Bezuidenhout pushing harder on the back of Lerero. They were pretty close to each other going into the corner there now, but Lerero getting the upper hand. Adrian Nell sitting in P3. He won the previous race, and I'm sure you want to emulate his previous offering. And he sits right up there behind Clinton Besaidon now. Some great line stack, and he goes wide. He's going to look to want to sling his way back in now. But let's see how he contends there now. Sitting on board here with Valdo Swiggers. Frankie, this is also a great dice here together with Grobler.
Yeah, Valdo Swiggers and Grobleach, and then James and Renier Leach. They sit there in P7 and P8, and there's not much between Swiggers and both Leaches for that matter. That is James and Renier, as we sit there with Valdo Swiggers. He's looking at, is that Grobbies that's ahead of him? Yes, it is. He's 0.2 of a second behind Grobbies that sits in P5. So this is the dice through Nchini 1 for that fifth position as they work their way now through Nchini 2 onto the back straight.
Right, onto the back straight they're going to go now. They're going to be a higher speed train coming through there now. So who's going to be drafting who now as they go down? And we're now with Clinton Besaidon. Besaidon sitting there behind Adrian Nell. Nell's now moved up into second place, and I tell you what, Clinton can't be too happy about that, but I'm sure the man that's rubbing his hands in glee is Adrian Nell, because he can only see one car ahead of him before he takes the lead.
Right, they're working their way through Gielskop now. It's mayhem out there between Swiggers and James Leach as they work their way into the final corner. Pit lane on the left-hand side. That's the final turn that takes you onto the home straight now. James Leach and Valdo Swiggers. They are side by side, Swiggers on the outside, Leach on the inside as they turn it left into turn 1.
Well, James Leach getting some great drive there now. As we sit on board with Valdo Swiggers, he must have thought, gee, what did you throw in the tank? Because you just blew past me there coming out of that left-hander. So off they go now as they go down this long winding straight now towards the heel of the boot.
Right, the leaders are going through the heel of the boot, and it's massive rubbing is racing there between Nell and Loreo that sits in that second position. It is Clinton Besaidon that's in P3. He's looking at those guys making their way through the toe of the boot, but Lucas sits there in P4. Jason Absmeyer, the man that came second out there in race number 1, and he's keeping a very beady eye there on Lorero, and Clinton Besaidon, he's 1.2 seconds behind Besaidon.
Yeah, Jason Absmeyer had a second in the previous heat, so he'll make sure that he tries to claw his way just a little bit closer, only a second off the front there, so I'm sure it'll go pretty well for him.
Yeah, Jason Absmeyer, he's got a nice view there of Clinton Besaidon. He's only now a 1/10 of a second or 1 second behind him is Jason Absmeyer. Janu van der Westhuizen just blew past Warren Sheehan as Sheehan went farming. He cut the lawn there at Pekisa Freeway, did Sheehan, and now he drops in there behind the 10th place man, Melvin Goos.
Well, Melvin Goos, we might expect him to be up a little bit higher, but making a little bit of a mistake there in the earlier stages of the race. Now finds himself behind Janu van der Westhuizen, and Janu van der Westhuizen is trying to chase down the Leaches.
Well, Valdo Swiggers is getting it all wrong, is going further and further back as we look there at the man in P6, James Leach, as he works his way across the finish line into the home straight with the Grobler. That sits there in P5. Grobby's in that 5th position. He's looking at Absmeyer and Lorero. Oh, they side by side. It's a hell of a fight there between these guys as they work their way out of turn 1. Now into those flowing right-left S-curves combinations that take you towards the heel of the boot. You see the heel of the boot there looming as Grobbies is having a look there. Lorero is the man that is in that 3rd position. There's nothing. Absmeyer is right there next to Loreo, and Grobler is 0.3 of a second behind Absmeyer. These guys are virtually side by side out of the toe of the boot.
Well, I don't have to say the gloves are not off now. They've already got blood noses. They're now in about round 12, and they're fighting hard. The punches are flowing. As Frankie said, it's rubbing as racing now. The front end of the field is extremely frenetic. No one's giving each other an inch there now. And I tell you what, if you get half a yard, you squeeze a car in there, and that's when you're going to be changing colours of paint.
Well, while we're looking at James Leach, I don't know if you noticed, look, he's in P1. Adrian Nell from P8 to P1. He wants to make it the double, and why not? Nell sits there in P1, Besaidon at 2nd, Lorero in that 3rd place, but James Leach is the man that we are on board with now. And it is a massive fight going into that right-hander. That's going into turn number 9, I think. That is heading towards the end of the back straight. Yes, there's gaggle of polars now heading into Geelskop, and there's massive contact going into Geelskop.
Well, there's a lot of the front runners that have now become unsettled now. Somebody decided to go a little bit loud into that corner now, and it looks like Grobler went through there pretty unscathed, but we'll have to see. Melvin Gous has moved up, so there is definitely a major unsettling of the front runners now. So René Leach finds himself in 4th, followed there by James Leach, Sean Lareria going down, and then Jana van der Westhuizen is now up into 6th position.
Janu's dropped down now 1-2 P7 as Leach has gone after him, but Janu comes back at him again and takes that 6th position away there from James Leach. But there's nothing between Leach, Sheehan, Gous and Deval Kotze. It's a 10th here, 2 tenths there, 7 tenths over there, Francois. That's a heck of a fight for this group that's just ahead of mid-pack.
We're on board with Melvin Gous. Melvin Gous making a couple of untoward decisions tonight that's been to his detriment, and he's lost a lot of places. We sit now on the board with Jason Leach, and he's sitting up behind Sean Lareria. Can he make any impact there? Larerio's got Jana van der Westhuizen, and he uses every little bit of that curbstone. He now comes up on the inside. Oh, and they make contact, and that just releases Jana van der Westhuizen ever so slightly.
Yeah, Sean Larerio's dropped 1 place down. Warren Sheehan is the man on the move, and then James Leach is the man that's in P6. We are looking at James Leach, and he's 2 tenths of a second behind 5th place man Janu van der Westhuizen as they work their way into that right-hander. That is Uncini 2. Yes, it is, as they head down the long back straight towards turns 9 and 10.
Well, we're sitting on board there with Dewald Kotze, that nice black and red polo. Into that sweeping right-hander goes. It's a long right-hander there now. Gets on the brakes a little bit just to settle the car now. Back on the gas he goes, and up ahead of him now Sean Lareria. Can he close down on Sean? Also stamps heavily on the brakes there now. Tries to come out nicely. And up ahead of him there, Lareria and Sheehan up ahead. So he's hoping that he can claw his way a little bit closer. Jana van der Westhuizen, well, 0.4 seconds behind Leach. Let's see if he can close that gap down.
Jana van der Westhuizen 3 tenths of a second behind 5th place man James Leach. As we look at van der Westhuizen in the Sim Race Africa polo hatch, making his way into that flowing right-left combinations as they work their way towards the heel of the boot. Van der Westhuizen 5 tenths of a second behind Leach into the heel of the boot. They work their way now. It's a whole gaggle of cars as we look at the Grobbies. And Grobbies is only 2 tenths of a second behind 2nd place man Clinton Besaiden. Note, if anything, Grobbies is having a go there at Clint into the hairpin that is the toe of the boot. Now into the left-hander, Castle Corner. Through Castle Corner, Castle Turn they go now, racing towards Uncini 1 and Uncini 2. And Grobbies is crawling all over the back of Clinton Besaiden as they work their way towards Uncini 1.
Besaiden taking a defensive line, making sure he keeps the door closed. You see him break in the middle of the circuit and then works his way around that long right-hander. I can just show you that Peter Grobler is trying everything in his arsenal to get past the back end there of Clinton Besaiden. But Clinton Besaiden, like we said, a seasoned campaigner. He knows the lines to take on the circuit. He knows the circuit. So he's making sure that Peter Grobler does not get past him. But make no mistake, he is really putting his foot flat down on the right-hand side of that pedal box.
Yeah, turn 9 is quick. Turn 10 you slow it down. Now you go into Geelskop. There you got to know your story through Geelskop now before you work your way into the final left-hander. That takes you back onto the home straight again. They are locking up his Grobbies. He is locking up big time as he is squirting it down that straight now. Peter Grobler is having a look there at Clinton Besaiden. Is he going to nail him on the outside? He's right there with Besaiden as they work their way out of turn number 1. Besaiden sits in 2nd position. Grobler sits out there in 3rd. Nell has disappeared down the road. They are about 8 seconds or more behind race leader Clinton. Nell, you see Nell working his way in the distance towards the toe of the boot as we watch Besaiden and Grobler now making their way towards the toe of the boot.
Well, coming out of the hill there now, Clinton Besaiden nearly got it wrong when he managed to gather his composure. as he takes it down towards the heel of the boot now, the toe of the boot, sorry. And again sideways, and he gets bumped, but manages to gather it. I think Peter Grobler, being a little bit gentleman-like, decided to just lay off a bit, rolled off ever so slightly and said, I'll give you a fair chance. But had he been otherwise intended, he might have pushed a little bit harder. But have a look there behind him now, René Leach closing down.
Yeah, René is getting close. He's 5/10 of a second behind this fight as we now hop aboard with René Leach, the man that sits there in that fourth position, making his way out of Uncini 2 now, as he will squirt it down that back straight. There they go, through Uncini 2. Now onto that long back straight they go now. And in the interim, Grobler is right next to Besaidenout. The two of them are side by side into turn number 9. As René Leach racing through turn 9 keeps an eye on them. They'll roll off slightly going into turn number 10. That's turn 10 they're going through now. And then it's hard on the brakes and through the gearbox into Geelskop. That's very difficult. Right-handed hairpin that closes on you.
Yeah, indeed. You've got to take it quite gently going in there, quite slow, because you don't want the track spitting you out now into the left hand. And now they'll go and up over the start-finish line. And Grobler getting on the gas there now, trying to draft. Clinton moves out the way, so he doesn't have any drafting up behind him. He's got the advantage going into the left-hander. What can Grobler do? Grobler hangs back. He's going to have to come back in behind him. But Grobler tries to stay around his outside. This is a gutsy maneuver around this long sweeping left-hander. But once again, Clinton Besaidenout gets the ever slight upper hand of that. And I'm going to show you that René Leach is having a fine look at these two squabbling.
Oh no, he's keeping a beady eye on both of them, that's for sure. He doesn't have a heck of a gap, because Jan van der Westhuizen is 1.8 seconds behind him in P5, as Grobler and Leach are side by side. Grobby's and Leach, Grobby's on the outside, Leach on the inside, as they dive into the hairpin that is the toe of the boot.
Well, I tell you what, Peter Grobler trying everything he can now. Clinton Besaidenout right up there behind him. And Clinton trying to maintain his line. But Peter Grobler definitely getting the upper hand here. Now we look at René Leach. And he sees these two squabbling up in front of him. It looks like Grobler's got the upper hand there of Clinton Besaidenout now. Is Clinton Besaidenout going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and trying to regain his composure and gather second place back? But that we'll have to wait and see now, because it looks like Grobler wants to get up, duck and disappear.
Yeah, well, Grobler does have his nose ahead of him as they work through Uncini 1 and 2, and now onto that long back straight. The two of them go now. René Leach says, you guys go, let's have a bit of a fight as we race down towards the turn number 9. We're looking at René Leach, but Janu van der Westhuizen in the background, 9/10 of a second behind him in P5. Van der Westhuizen is closing up on René Leach as they work their way through Geelskop.
Well, René still having a look at that squabble there between Clinton Besaidenout and Peter Grobler up ahead of him. Not too much to go. We've got about a minute and a half to go now as they're racing for the final honours. Keep an eye there on Clinton now. It takes a good line there through. Then it's going to be René Leach, and Jan van der Westhuizen is closing down on the back of Leach now. It could be exciting stuff up towards the closure of this second heat. And our leader, Adrian Nel, while he's down the road, he's probably put in his supper order because he knows what's coming. And he's got a comfortable lap, or should I say lead ahead there of Peter Grobler.
Right, they're working their way now through the S's towards the heel of the boot. Is Grobler and Besaidenout. Can you believe that Nel is way down the road? Have a look at this one. Leach and Van der Westhuizen, they're all inside this fight. Besaidenout, Leach and Van der Westhuizen. There's nothing between them. Leach is looking ahead of him, and if he looks in his rear view mirror, you'll see Janu van der Westhuizen there. Van der Westhuizen is right there. He's going to look at Besaidenout, and he also has to keep an eye on Van der Westhuizen that is on his way.
Well, it's a fantastic tussle here for 3, 4 and 5, that's for sure. And René Leach, well, he could possibly make a difference. There's still time to go. And he sits there right on the back end of Clinton Besaidenout. I can show you that Clint is down the defense more than on the attack.
Well, the time is running out. We're going to head pretty soon into the final lap. Jan van der Westhuizen, man, he's 3/10 of a second behind René Leach. He's got a comfortable gap between Warren Sheehan, that's in P6. So he doesn't have to worry too much about Warren Sheehan. He's going to have a look up on the inside. Leach is going to be overtaken there by Van der Westhuizen. Yes, Van der Westhuizen has nailed Warren Sheehan as they make their way towards, I think it is the toe of the boot, as, or should I say yes, it is the toe of the boot, as they work their way towards Castle Corner.
Right, off they go now. We're on board with Sean Larerio. He's having a look at the back end there of Warren Sheehan, and up behind him it's Leach. James Leach pushing as hard as he can. They're going to go over on the start-finish line and start their final lap. So Sean Larerio down in 7th. I'm sure he would like to be a lot higher.
Well, Adrianel is, no, my word, he's so far down the highway. He can have hamburger and coke and still get to the checkered flag in P number 1. But Larerio is only 0.4 of a second behind Warren Sheehan, and then James Leach is also in there as well, and they're way down the road from Melvin Goos that sits in P9. They've got a comfortable gap there on Melvin Goos as Renier Leach works his way down that back straight. He's looking at Van der Westhuizen and Besaidnout, and Janu's gone up to 3rd. Janu van der Westhuizen has gone into that 3rd position. He just put the move there on Clinton Besaidnout as Adrianel on his final lap will be working his way towards the checkered flag. I think Nel must be very close to the checkered flag as we look at Van der Westhuizen with Besaidnout right there with him. They are all on their final lap as they head towards the end of it. But Nel once again has destroyed them all, coming in this race from P8, Francois, all the way into the lead.
Oh, he's definitely tuned his car properly. He's definitely up there, and he's put out a masterclass there this evening. Peter Grobler ahead there of Janu van der Westhuizen. I don't know if Janu can catch him, but Clinton Besaidnout is trying to close down on Janu. Janu van der Westhuizen is taking the defense. Clinton looks up on the inside, but Janu shuts the door, slams it in his face. There's a blood nose for you. Have a nice day. Right at the closing stages. And we're now with Adrianel on board. He'll take the left-hander going over the line, Frankie.
Yeah, Peter Grobler and Van der Westhuizen and Besaidnout. That's the one we want to see. It's going to be Grobby's coming home in 2nd. Janu van der Westhuizen finishes in 3rd, and right behind him across the line is Clinton Besaidnout, Renier Leach, Warren Sheehan, Jason Leach and Sean Larerio. They all crossed the line virtually at the same time.
Well, there in 9th is Jason Absmeyer, and then Melvin Goos, followed there by Mike McGreer, Christopher Long, Stewie Mack, and then coming over the line, Valdo Swiggers, Lyle Ramsey, and Warwick Stewart, together with Dewald Kotze.
Undoubtedly, to my mind, one of the best ever races in the history of SRA Polo Cup. The 3rd race meeting, rounds 5 and 6, utterly amazing stuff. I don't think it gets any better than that whatsoever. And a big thanks to Frankie Yennis and Francois Butler, the 2 lead commentators from Canon International Raceway, that brought that race through to you. Well, folks, that was the A League. The B League will be going out on Wednesday, but what I can tell you is in the not too distant future, we're going to be putting the A and B League together, and it's going to be a bumper session on a Sunday evening. All of that brought to you by JP Hydraulics and Volvo Namibia. A big thanks to those people. All the guys in the background, you know who you are. A big thanks to all of you. And folks, I think it was wow, that was amazing. I think a lot of replays are going to be going down during the latter part of this evening to get some of those lovely in-car shots. From my side, Gary Fleming, on behalf of Frankie Yennis and Francois Butler, thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. We will come to you same time next week, Sunday, and that will be with the British Touring Car Championships. Good night, everybody.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm the party starter. Are you ready to go? I'm the party starter. Party starter. Party starter. Party starter. I'm the party starter. Everybody, let's go.